Hey everyone, it's Kenton Kivestu here. I'm an ex-Googler and the founder of RocketBlocks, an online platform that helps candidates prepare for interviews. In today's RocketBlocks mini lesson, we're going to be talking about product management interviews, and specifically a certain class of product management interviews known as product design interviews. We've got an intro video on this if you're not familiar with that, so I'd go check that out first. If so, let's jump into the advanced tips here. There's essentially two common failure modes that candidates fall into on these type of interview questions. The first is that they don't have enough structure in how they respond. And the second is that there's no soul and there's no creativity in how they're responding to these type of questions. On the first issue, structure, we talked about this in a prior video, so we'll put the link to that down in the comments below. In this video, we're really going to focus on soul and enthusiasm and making sure that shines through when you are answering a product design question. So first, we're going to talk about why that's so important and why it matters that you signal that to interviewers. And then in the second part, we're going to talk about how you can make sure you demonstrate that regardless of what your personal style is in an interview. So let's go ahead and jump in. The difference with a product design question is it deals with a part of the job that pretty much attracts everyone to product management. Designing a new feature, thinking about how that fits into the roadmap, thinking about the user experience and like how cool it's going to be, all that stuff. It's what a lot of product managers really get jazzed about. So if you are going through a product design question and you seem really stilted or bored or overly mechanical, or you're so wrapped up in like following your framework to a T that you just don't demonstrate any real excitement or enthusiasm or passion, even though that's quite a loaded word for like going through this exercise and thinking about defining a new feature and all the sort of like little intricate details of how it would work and all that fun stuff. The interviewer is really going to question if the candidate isn't excited doing this stuff, which is the fun part of the job. How are they going to deal with the crappy parts of the job? When they're, spending a 15th meeting trying to align different stakeholders on a product vision, or when it's Saturday morning and they can't go out to brunch with their friends because they're busy bug triaging at home because some production bug has come up and they're working with the engineers over chat. Those are the parts of the job that are hard, and everyone knows they're hard. And so what folks want to see is when they're testing you on your ability to talk about some of the fun, exciting parts of the job, that your energy and enthusiasm really shows up there. So that's why it's important. Now let's talk about how you actually demonstrate that regardless of the style you choose. Okay, so how do you actually demonstrate this energy, this enthusiasm, what I call soul, when you're answering these type of questions? I think there's really three key things that you can focus on. The first is show your authentic responses. One of the things that happens in these interviews is the product design prompt is given. Let's say it's, imagine you're a PM at Google and you've been asked to think about how Google should enter the food delivery space and design a product there. And you get that question as a candidate. Often what you see is people say, okay, do you mind if I ask some clarifying questions? Or do you mind if I take 60 seconds to think about it? Sure, like that stuff is all fine, but like, what about your authentic reaction to just hearing that question? Like that's kind of crazy, right? Like Google's going to think about getting into the food delivery space. That's so different than like ads and Google Cloud and productivity software. Like, whoa, that's really interesting. Let's think about that. That type of reaction is really great to show because it just shows that as soon as you hear a prompt, you're like, whoa, that's like interesting because of this reason, that reason, etc. It doesn't lock you into exploring that or that that's your whole answer to the question, but it shows that you're really engaging with the material immediately. So that's the first thing. The second thing is showcase your relevant knowledge. When a question like that comes up, if you have like something you've been reading about in the industry that's related, or maybe a trend at that company, like, hey, like I know that the macroeconomic environment is putting a lot of pressure on Google's ads businesses. So it makes sense that they're thinking about alternative ways to generate revenue, and food delivery is a huge consumer business. That sort of bringing in that relevant knowledge shows that you're not just going through this process and thinking about this only in the isolated example of the interview, but that you are constantly like catching up and thinking about what's going on in the industry and the different moving pieces and pulling that in, and that you really have some natural excitement for it because you're doing it in your free time. That's what that demonstrates. So that's the second thing. And then the third is don't forget to riff and do some creative exploration in these interviews. It's okay occasionally to say, like, this idea might be a little bit crazy, but like, what if you did this, like this off the wall thing? As long as you're making sure to signal and that you are explaining, hey, like this might be a little bit crazy, but like, have we thought about X or Y? Like that could be interesting. Even putting those ideas forward, even if you don't pursue them or prioritize them as you're walking through the exercise, they might unlodge other interesting ideas that are really good ideas that you end up pursuing. So don't let that creative process fall apart or get left out of answering these interview questions. And that can totally fit into a well-structured response. You can be walking through a structure and always say, okay, I want to pause here and just think about all the different permutations and feature ideas that we could do here, even if some are a little bit crazy. And let's like brainstorm and think around those. That doesn't mean you're being unstructured. You're just signaling at this point, you're going to do some creative exploration, and then you're going to pull it all back into your process and how you're walking through an interview. So if you think about those three things, authentic responses, bringing in relevant knowledge, riffing a little bit and showing the creativity, all of them are different ways of just showing your authentic excitement for working through these type of problems, which is really what interviewers want to see at the end of the day. They don't just want to see a candidate that's memorized some framework and just sort of walking through it step by step, monotonously, very mechanically, and not sort of demonstrating any real interest in solving that problem. Okay, one final thing to keep in mind. All of the tips we were talking about in the prior section, authentic responses, bringing in relevant information, riffing and showing some real creativity, all help to draw the interviewer in and make the process more like a back and forth conversation, which builds a real rapport and is much more similar to what it will actually be like working on the job. And interviewers often react really, really well to that. So thank you so much for watching. We have a ton of great content coming out on a weekly basis. If you haven't subscribed yet already, please do so. There is a big red button below. If you hit that button, you'll get all our content as soon as it comes out. And if you happen to be actively preparing for interviews right now, I recommend you check us out at www.rocketblocks.me. We've got a ton of concept reviews, drills, and expert coaches that can help you get ready for your interview. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.